Everyone, welcome back to another fun and exciting Algebra 1 class. Today we are going to be in Lesson 9.5. Lesson 9.5 is talking about how to use what's called the quadratic formula. Sometimes it's not easy to factor a quadratic. Sometimes it's not easy to complete the square. Sometimes it's not easy to extract the root. And so what do we do when all of the other methods are hard, or all the other methods aren't really, something that we can find the correct answer from? Well, what you would do in that case is you would use what's called the quadratic formula. On page 321, you will see the quadratic formula, how they derive it. Now, I'm not going to quiz you on that, test you on that. It's kind of for your own viewing enjoyment. You can look at that and your mind might go, when you look at that. Lots of letters, lots of squareds, lots of movements, lots of square roots, all kinds of things going on. I don't mind, I don't care that you know that or don't know that, how to derive it. Here's what I care that you know. I need you to know the quadratic formula. It's right here on the screen. It's also in your book on page 321 and on page 322. You must memorize the quadratic formula. It's very, very important that you have it memorized, not that you just kind of look it up in the book every time that you need it. So please take the time to memorize this formula. All right, negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That is the quadratic formula. Any quadratic, you can plug into this formula. You can't factor every quadratic because sometimes they end up with like square roots and we don't know how to factor those. You can't always, you can always complete the square technically, but sometimes it's complicated to complete the square. This method will always work, and I think that probably as you work on it, you'll like it as you continue to practice with it. All right, one of the big things that you need to know in order to work with the quadratic formula is you have to know how to find the A, how to find the B, and how to find the C. Look at this. The B shows up twice, the A shows up twice, and the C shows up once. So you have to know the A, B, and C. What if you don't know the A, B, and C? Then you're never going to get the answer correct. So let's practice on our A, B, and C. All right, so here's a quadratic. Let's go ahead and mark down what is the A, what is the B, and what is the C. Well, remember standard form. Okay, so let me scroll back up here. Let's just write down standard form. AX squared plus BX plus C equals 0. That's our standard form. Okay, in order to have the A, B, and C, you must put it in standard form first. You can't just look at it and say, oh, I think that the C is, whatever. It has to be in standard form. Well, good news on this one. That's the AX squared, that's the BX, and that's the C. It's in order, and it's right, and it's ready to go. Good. So what we want to do is, what is the A? Well, that's the A, the coefficient of the x squared. So the A in this one is 7. What's the B? Well, there it is in the standard form. Here it is in our equation. It's 3. And then the C would be, in this case, negative 2. Be careful with the signs. You have to take the sign with it, okay? And if you mess up the sign, you're going to mess up the whole formula when you go to work it. So there it is. A is 7, B is 3, and C is negative 2. Let's do it again. This one's a little bit more challenging, so let's go ahead and look at this. All right, there's something very important about this, and this is found on page 322 in your book, 322. Example 9.5b. Here's what it says. The formula will be easier to apply if the value of A is positive. Do you remember a few lessons ago when I told you to just turn the A positive, that would help? Never use a negative A. Look, we have a negative A, so we want to get rid of that negative A. We have to multiply a negative 1. We have to distribute a negative 1 all the way through this. So what happens? Negative 1 times negative 2 equals positive 2. I'm just going to write the coefficients. I won't write the whole thing. Negative 1 times negative 4, look, that's a negative 4. So that's going to be positive 4. Negative 1 times positive 9, that's going to be a negative 9. So there you go. So this is our A term, which is 2. You say, oh, I thought it was negative 2. No, no, no. We got to multiply by the negative 1. So that's going to be a positive 2. A positive 4 is the B, and a negative 9 is the C. That is very important that you understand that concept of multiplying or dividing, doesn't matter, by the negative 1. What does that do? Well, that changes all of the signs in the whole thing. Let's do one more of these. This one's a little bit more complicated. Okay, maybe a lot bit more complicated. Look at this. We have a fraction there. We haven't had a fraction yet. Look at what else we have. We have the 5 on the wrong side. That's a problem. So what do we need to do? We need to subtract 5 from both sides. We need to put it in standard form. That's going to cancel there. We're going to get 4/3 x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Now, just like I said when we don't want negatives in the A term, it's going to be very hard if you have fractions in any of them, okay? So one way that you can get rid of a fraction in this thing is by multiplying by the LCD, the least common denominator. Well, just give the ones that don't have denominators, just give them a denominator of 1, okay? And so our LCD is 3. So if we will multiply all terms by 3, technically you would multiply the 0 by 3, but it doesn't matter. So that's going to cancel to a 1, and that's going to give us a 4. Let me scroll up a little bit. That's going to give us a 4x squared. This here is going to give us a plus 9x, and this here is going to give us a minus 15 equals 3 times 0 is 0. Okay. All right, there we go. Now we don't have any fractions left over, so we eliminated that fraction by multiplying by the LCD. And now we have the A is 4, the B is 9, and the C is negative 15. Okay? It's so important that you understand that because we first of all had to move that over. That's where the negative came from. Then we had to eliminate the fraction. That's where the times 3 came from. Negative 15. The C is not 5. Don't put 5 on there. Okay? And so be careful to work through these in order to get the A, B, and C correct. All right. Now let's jump in. Let's do one. Let's go ahead and plug it all the way in now that we've kind of figured out what the A is, what the B is, and what the C is. Let's plug it into the quadratic formula. First, let's go ahead and do the A, B, and C on this one so that we know what to plug in. Okay? Well, this one's pretty much set, except we need to move this 2 over to the other side. Plus 2 and plus 2, and that's going to cancel, and so we're going to get 2x squared minus 5x plus 2 equals 0, okay? So, again, we have a 2 here. We could take that to a 1. We could divide everything by 2, but then we're going to get, and then we're back to a fraction. It's easier to work with a number here for the A, so you don't have to take that A to a 1 here. That's best when you're extracting the root to take that to a 1. In fact, you have to do it when you're extracting the root. But here, you can leave the A as 2. So the 2, then we have a negative 5 for the B, and then we have a 2 again for the C. Now what do we need to do? Now we need to write our quadratic formula, okay? So what is the quadratic formula? Well, you need to know the quadratic formula in order to, to do it. Memorize it. It'll be so much easier unless, you just really love looking back in your book to find things constantly, and then you might run out of time on your quizzes and tests because you're busy looking for this. So minus B, and then plus minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC, and that is all over 2A. Okay, that's the quadratic formula. What we're going to do now is we're going to plug in those numbers. So where you see a B, you're going to plug in a 2. Okay, where you see, whoops, sorry, I don't know why I said that. Where you see a B, Let's rewind that. You're never even going to hear I said that. Okay, so where you see an A, you're going to plug in a 2. So everywhere you see an A, you get a 2. And then there's another A here, so you'd put a 2. Everywhere you see a B, it's going to get a -5. So -5, -5. And everywhere you see a C, you're going to get a 2. Okay, so just plug in. All right, let's go ahead and let's rewrite this with just our numbers in there. So negative, negative. Look, negative, there was already a negative in the formula. So negative, -5. What happens when we have negative, negative? Okay, negative, -5. We don't write it like that. What do? Two negatives make a positive in algebra. So 5 plus minus the square root of -5 squared minus 4a, which is 2, times c, which is also 2. So there we go. And then that's going to be divided by 2 times a, which is 2. Now what we really want to do is we want to just work on solving that. So let's go ahead and just work on it. Now, some of your calculators, it depends what calculator you're using, but I want you to solve this piece by piece. I don't want you to try to plug that whole thing into a calculator. I want you to solve it little by little. So where we always start on this is underneath the radical sign. It's almost like a parenthesis, so we're going to start inside there. So we could start with that. So we're going to have 5 plus minus the square root of -5 times -5 is going to be positive 25 minus, and then we'll multiply those together. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. And then we can do this denominator, which is 4. Okay. And now we're just going to keep solving in here. So we're going to have 5 plus minus the square root of 25 minus 16, which is 9 over 4. Now we know the square root of 9, so we can solve that. So now we're going to have 5 plus minus, what is the solution to square root of 9? 3 over 4. Now we get to the point where, again, we have this plus minus sign. And remember, we have two answers here. Every quadratic gives us two answers. So we're going to branch this out into two solutions. We're going to have 5 plus 3 over 4. And we're going to have 5 minus 3 over 4. 5 plus 3 is 8 over 4, which solves to 2. So one of our solutions is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2 over 4, which solves out to 1/2. Okay, both positive solutions. So 2 and 1/2 are our two solutions for that one. And if you want to look at that one in your book, if you want to follow what they did in your book, you can look down at page 323. Page 323. They show it the same thing that I just did there in your book. Okay. Let's do one more of these, and then we'll be done. All right. So let's do this one. All right, so let's do -4x squared minus 2x plus 5. What's our A, B, and C? So our A equals -4. This one's already in order, right? So that kind of makes it easy. But what did I say about that negative? I said we want to kind of get rid of that negative, right? Because what's going to happen if we leave that negative? Well, we're going to have a negative denominator. It's going to be a problem, and it's just easier. So trust me, it's easier. So let's go ahead and multiply by -1. This will help us on this one, okay? So we're going to have A is going to be a positive 4x squared plus 2x minus 5 equals 0. All right. So what's our A? Our A is 4. What's our B? Our B is 2. And what's our C? Our C is -5. So there we go. Now we want to plug into our formula. Well, let's write our formula so that we can plug into it. Do you remember it? Okay, minus B plus minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC. All that is over 2a. Okay, so now let's plug into it. A was 4, so everywhere that you see an A, we're going to write a 4. So minus b was 2, plus minus the square root of 2 squared, minus 4 times AC. A was 4, C was negative 5. And that is all going to be over 2a, and a was 4, 2 times 4. Let me take a minute to tell you what this is called right here. This has a special name, okay? The information, the numbers that are under the square root sign, that is called the discriminant, okay? And so you always want to solve the discriminant first. You can solve down here too because that's an easy solution, but don't mess with anything out here yet. Let's solve the discriminant, then let's solve the square root if we can. All right, so let's go through the discriminant, and let's say, well, what is 2 squared? 2 squared is 4, so we have minus 2 plus minus the square root of 4. Now, you can do this any way that you want. You could put parentheses around this and use the minus sign in there, or you can just leave the minus sign and do this. It doesn't matter. It will come out the same. So let's just go ahead and use the negative sign. So we'll say negative 4 times 4, that's going to be negative 16 times negative 5. So negative 16 times negative 5, get your calculators out, it's going to be faster. We don't need to do the negatives because we know the answer is going to be positive because it's going to be negative times negative. So 16 times 5 equals 80. All right, so that's going to be 80, and that's going to be a positive 80. So plus 80. And that's going to be over 2 times 4, which is 8. Well, we're not quite done right there. I'll just kind of erase that, and we'll put 84. So 84. All right, well, this is interesting, right? Because now, what do I do next? Well, let me show you what you can do next, because this is where a lot of students will mess up right here. They just leave that alone. But 84, we can square factor that. So minus 2 plus minus what? Take 84, and what goes into that? So what are the square factors? 4, 9, 16. Let's see, what else goes into that? I don't know. But the only one that's going to go into that is 4. So 4 goes into that 21 times. So we're going to have 4, square root of 4, square root of 21. What comes out of the 4? 2. So 2 is going to come outside, and 21 is going to stay inside. And that's all going to be over 8. Now, this is what I was talking about. This is a place where students mess up right here. One thing that students try to do is they try to reduce this right here, and that's a mistake, okay? Let me show you why. You can't reduce this because this up here is a term. That top part is a term. So what you have to do is you have to factor out the 2, and you can factor out the 2, right? And so what are we left with if we factor out the 2? 2 times minus, well, what happens here is you get a minus 1 plus minus 1. You don't even need to write that one, just square root of 21. You could write that one if you wanted to, over 8. Now we can reduce because we factored the 2 outside. You can never factor when there's a plus minus sign connecting terms. Okay, so don't try that. I'm saying that, and then you're going to try it anyways, and I'm going to mark it wrong. So don't try it. Trust me on that. All right, so let's cancel. That cancels to a 1. That cancels to a 4. So our new answer is going to be negative 1 plus minus the square root of 21 over 4. You can leave it right there. You're done with that right now. So go ahead and circle that. Why are we done? Because I can't solve out the 21. This 21 doesn't solve. What if the 21 solved? Well, then you could keep going with that like we kept going with this other one, where when the 9 solved out right here, the 9 solved out to a 3. And so we solved it, and then we kept going. But here, there is no square root of 21. 21 is an irrational number under the square root sign, so we just leave it alone, okay? And circle your answer right there. So just use the quadratic formula and it will solve out. I usually try to factor first. I try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then I go to the quadratic formula or to another method of solving. Okay? All right. Hope you learned something there. Make sure that you roll that back and look at it if you missed anything along the way. That's all I got for you. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.